A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fast Show. Even when a lot of us would have wanted to be in bed right now, given the amount of rain that is falling outside, we have to show up at work. We have to ensure that you show up every morning looking as fresh and as good as you can and getting ready to start your day. Now, my name is Latifa Hamid, and of course, this is the Fast Show that comes your way every Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. as we get ready to launch and start our day. Now, you cannot start your day without knowing what exactly happened during the week, during the weekend, and what is likely to happen during this week. You need to get yourself ready for what is to happen this week as we update you on what's happening on news and who is doing what agenda is being set, and what conversation can you have with your friends as you go to work on Monday. The saying is the earliest bird catches the worm. Are you that bad that is going to catch the worm? But what does the saying say about the earliest worms? Because if the earliest bird catches the worms, that means the earliest worms are caught by the earliest birds. Now, all that are dilemmas in life that you need to think about as you grow up and as you lead your life. I was discussing with one of my colleagues last week, and I told them the biggest lie that we were told is that growing up is fun. Because, ladies and gentlemen, growing up actually is not fun. There's a lot that happens in the process of growing up. There's responsibility. There's getting to know that at this time you're supposed to make your own choices, and every choice has a consequence to it. Some consequences are negative and some consequences are positive, but you need to ensure whether you make that choice or not, you need to know that that consequence will be felt. So, are you going to make that choice, or are you going to sit and let life choose that particular decision for you? And when life does it, it doesn't take the easy way out. But when you do it, you could at least be easy on yourself. Should you be easy on yourself is the question that you're asking. I believe that in some instances, don't be too hard on yourself. You need to give yourself some space. Cut yourself a slack. Hey, you woke up at 4 a.m. Cut yourself some slack. Hey, you worked from morning to evening. Cut yourself a slack. Hey, you worked from Monday to Sunday. Cut yourself a slack. You need to have what I call a cheat day. Now, on that cheat day, you need to ensure that you at least reward yourself for doing what you did the whole week. And that is if you did a good job. Don't reward yourself for just being lazy and say, I need to reward myself for being lazy. No, don't do that. Ensure that when you're rewarding yourself for a job well done. See, I wake up every other morning to ensure that I am here on time, and my team that comprises of Don Dodron, Vincent Sempija, Husna Feti, Jeff and Sarah wake up at 4 a.m. and now that means that we deserve to have a break. We deserve to have a cheat day. We deserve to ensure that there's one day in a week whereby if you usually wake up at 4 a.m. on Sunday you sleep until 10. That's a cheat day. That's a reward to how much you have dedicated yourself to doing the whole week. Say you used to have a diet plan for you people who like being healthy, and you say, I'm going to eat salads and fruits the whole of this Ramadan. Be careful, you have ulcers, and ulcers will come if you do not eat proper meals. Now, if you've had that on a daily day, not Ramadan, and you've been having what you call your daily routine of making sure that you eat on diet, there's also the process that is called cheat day. Now, on that cheat day, what happens is that you ensure that you have a meal, one KFC bag and a soda on that day for your cheat day, to appreciate yourself for having fasted or for having been on diet for as long as a month or a year, depending on what your plan and your work plan is. So have a habit of rewarding yourself, because the more you do that, you work harder, because at the end of the month, if I make sure that I pass these goals that I have in my book of goals, I I'm going to reward myself with a gift at the end of the month. So you work hard to ensure that you're able to reward yourself. That is what I had for you, ladies and gentlemen, this morning, thinking that everybody deserves a reward for being good to yourself, for saving. See, if you're the type of person who doesn't spend much, and then you spend very small pennies at the end of the month, if you've saved up so much and there's a surplus, use it. Go shopping, girls. Go buy makeup. Men, go buy your favorite suit that they told you was at 400,000 and you couldn't afford it at that time. Now that is a reward that you get for ensuring that you're disciplined throughout the month. So even when they tell you that you need to shoot for the stars and then you need to shoot for the moon and then you land on the stars, ensure that you applaud yourself for actually landing on the stars, because not a lot of people have landed on the star. You have shot your rocket and you have managed to land on the star, and congratulations to you. Today in the morning, I'd like to say one happy birthday to all those who are celebrating their birthdays on this date as April is coming to an end. And for those who are sick in hospitals, may Allah grant you shifa and may you get better faster. And for those who are fasting, Ramadan Kareem, and may this new week come with blessings. Ramadan is running. We're almost on the 9th day of Ramadan, very, very fast. And that means that you need to ensure that your prayers are on time. You need to ensure that you talk to God, because this is the time, according to the Islamic belief, even to Christianity, when you fast, you give your soul to the Lord. You tell God that I'm fasting because of you, and I need you to grant my prayer A, B, C, D. So to ensure that with the days running out and Ramadan coming to an end really fast, you already have a game plan and you already have all your prayers listed down, because that's the trick I do. In order for me not to forget the prayers that I want to talk to God about, the du'as that I want to talk to God about, what I do is I list them all down, and when I go to prayers, I hold my paper and I'm like, Ya Allah, grant me wealth. Ya Allah, grant me health. Ya Allah, grant me hikmah. Ya Allah, grant me wisdom. Now, those are the things that you don't want to forget, because you know, with all the running around that you have in life, you could actually forget a few things when you're talking to your God, because you're in His presence and you're scared of asking Him for a few things. Don't. Have your list down and ensure that you ask for everything on that list, because He says when you fast, He will be the one to grant that particular prayer or that dua that you have, because you have kept hungry for the whole day. You know what hunger means, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's start off with the first show and see what are those news articles that made our headlines. What are those news articles last week that made a lot of sense, that we thought we need to bring them and pull them into Monday? Now, the first one that I'd like to start with before we, of course, end this particular session, and I wouldn't want to leave without doing it, is actually the burial of the Duke of Edinburgh, and that is Philip, who was buried on Saturday. Now, only 30 guests attended Prince Philip's funeral at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. You remember when the Prime Minister had said, Prime Minister of UK, of course, had said that he will be unable to attend this particular burial, because if he does, then he will cut down on the number of people who will be able to attend the burial. UK is one of the countries who have lost over 50,000 people to COVID-19, and they're trying to ensure that even during Philip's burial, they do not have another turnout of COVID-19 that will affect their people. So they ensured that only 30 people attended, and those 30 people are the closest relatives to Prince Philip. Now, we know that Prince Philip died at the age of 99, almost making 100, and we also know that he was the husband of Queen Elizabeth. He's originally a Greek who came in and took over the cultures and the ways of life of the British, because he later became the Duke of Edinburgh. You cannot call him a king, because at that time Queen Elizabeth was reigning, and he came in just as the husband of Queen Elizabeth. Just like in Tanzania, Samia Suluhu, who is now the president, that means her husband is not the first gentleman. because when a man is the president, the woman becomes the first lady. So when a woman is the president, the man becomes the first gentleman, the first husband, or whatever name you want to give him. So that is what the Duke of Edinburgh wants. Now, looking at the small list of people who attended the burial of Duke of Edinburgh, Prince George, Princess Charlotte were not there, as they were likely thought too young for the televised proceedings, and they were left at home. Now, it took place at 3 p.m. on Saturday. Remember, he passed away on 9th April, and that particular burial was preceded by a national 1-minute silence to pray for his how do they call it, rest in peace, to pray that his soul rests in eternal peace. Now, the leading procession, remember I told you that when he was going to be buried, there were going to be members of the royal family who will be leading in front before his casket will be following from behind, and the leading procession included Prince Charles, Prince Anne, Prince William, Prince Harry, ladies and gentlemen, was very present. Some people thought that because of the misunderstandings that were going on between Prince Harry and his family, he may not attend this particular burial, but he attended the burial and he was in the leading procession. Princess Andrew and Prince Edward were also there, and not forgetting, of course, the Queen, his partner for more than 70 years, who attended the funeral. Now, she described her husband as her strength and stay, and they said, a lot of people have commented about how close these people were and how much their connection and how close they were helped Queen Elizabeth stay for as long as she is alive as we speak. And the question is, how will she manage right now that her husband has just passed away? Now, that's a question that we're asking and we're waiting to see, and we pray for her strength during this trying time of her husband's passing. Now, the other information that, of course, we have and that we're going to share with you is Rebecca Kadaga over the weekend and last week met a number of people, and among the people that Rebecca Kadaga met was Muslims. Now, Rebecca Kadaga met Muslims and they discussed details about how to have Islamic banking happen. Now, the pictures that you see on your screen, of course, are the details of the burial of the Duke of Edinburgh. And when you see what is happening, you see that he was given a royal burial. But according to our sources, he said that he did not want anything luxurious and he wanted a very simple burial, and that is what they gave Philip. Exactly, you can see the Queen dressed in black with her heart, and she's walking right in front of her husband's casket. You can see a number of people also attended from the royal family and from the government of UK and Britain. All of them attended their royal uniforms, and that is red. And you can see how organized the burial was. And of course, the nation will be mourning the demise of Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, who came from just being one of the people in grace to being a family member and a blood royal in Britain. Now, allow me to move to the next story, and that is of Rebecca Kadaga, who finally met the Muslim leaders or Muslim clerics or different people in the Muslim world to discuss the possibility of Islamic banking in Uganda. And this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, our viewers. Do you think that in Uganda, Islamic banking is possible? There are a number of people who had views about Islamic banking. Some of them said it is impossible for Islamic banking to work in Uganda because of its aspect of riba. What is riba? Riba is what you call how do I put it? Riba is when you're given a loan, the interest that you pay on the loan is riba, and with Islamic banking, there's a certain amount of money that is not supposed to pay in interest of the loan. Of course, we have a tweet that we'll be showing you sooner or later with Rebecca Kadaga saying that she had met a number of Muslim leaders as they were speaking about the Islamic banking and how true it can be in our country, Uganda. Now, let's look at what exactly Islamic banking is, as we're speaking about Islamic banking, in order to understand what exactly Rebecca Kadaga means. And as of course, Usna Feti is getting me the tweet for you to read exactly what Rebecca Kadaga is saying. Remember, one thing that we do on the show is bring you the updates that would like you to know, and then we bring you the corresponding tweets with those updates, or we just bring you the tweet to show you what tweets made the headlines as well during the other week and this week, and we'll be continuing with that trend from today onwards. So updates, the tweet, and then we have the headlines that really have to go into details about that. We can't do them as updates, and then later we go on to talk about what we call the big talk, where we involve you in our conversation and would like you to give us your views on what exactly you think about the topic that we will be talking about. Now let's look at what exactly Rebecca Kadaga said about Islamic banking and what it is about Islamic banking that you need to know. Now, Islamic banking, for a lot of people who don't know, is an Islamic finance or Sharia-compliant finance where banking or financing activities which comply with Sharia and its practical application through the development of Islamic economies. Some of the modes of Islamic banking and finance include Mudaraba, Wadiya, Musharaka, Murabaha, and Ijara. We'll definitely have someone during this week, the course of this week, to help us understand exactly what Islamic banking is about and what it is that Islamic banking holds dear to the Muslims' hearts and why they're advocating for Islamic banking. You can see that Rebecca Twala Kadaga on the date of April 16th said, "This evening I have hosted Muslims to an iftar dinner at Parliament. I've urged them to extend a helping hand to brethren that are less financially endowed, especially during this holy month of Ramadan." And there's another tweet, however, that she also talked about the fact that she is pushing for Islamic banking, and we'll definitely be looking at that as we continue with this particular topic of Islamic banking and its importance to Islamic banking. Now, when we talk about interest in Islam is called riba. And when we look at riba, what exactly riba is, riba technically means increase when liquid or fungible assets, cash or gains are exchanged other than per value. Now, all those details, I really don't want to go into the details of the Islamic banking studios to explain to us the details of Islamic banking and why it's dear to the hearts of Muslims and why they're advocating for Islamic banking in Uganda, and if Islamic banking can actually work in a place like Uganda, where banks actually survive from having an interest-based system. Will Islamic banking work? Will Islamic banking survive? Are the questions that we're definitely asking. And I know that you're asking the same questions, and we'll be having the answers for you sooner or later. Now, a lot has been happening during the week. A number of things have been making rounds of headlines, and the other one that I don't want to forget as I'm speaking about the updates is the attack on Archbishop Cyprian Lwanga's home by thugs who went there knowing that Cyprian Lwanga has passed away. So they went and attacked his home, and the people who were in Cyprian Lwanga's home were tied, and some of them were hurt in the process. Money was stolen to a tune of 250,000 Ugandan shillings, and property was also stolen. And during investigations, police said that they arrested the guard, or the person in charge of the gate in regard to this case, because they said he was not around when the event happened. and he only surfaced after the event had happened. Investigations are still ongoing about the issue, and they're saying that that is very unfortunate. The matter that happened in Cyprian Lwanga's home is very, very unfortunate, and it happened in Mukono district, and the Shamba boy has also been arrested. And unfortunately, crime is increasing in our country at this moment when, of course, there's COVID-19 and the curfew that is in place. And that conversation will lead me later on to the fact that Museveni addressed the nation very recently, and he spoke about a number of issues, including the curfew. If you remember last week, we had a phone call session where we were discussing what we expect President Museveni to talk about in his address and what we are asking for him to discuss about during his address. Now, this thing that happened in Cyprian Lwanga's home is very unfortunate, and we thank God that nobody was killed in the process and everybody is safe. Property was stolen and the people were tied up. A few of them were hurt, not too bad in the process. The Shamba boy has been arrested and investigations are continuing on the matter of the robbery that happened in the home of Cyprian Lwanga. Now that brings me to the conversation of the president. Just like I told you, crime has not started today or yesterday. Of course, anywhere that there are people living below the poverty line, there must be crime. People are trying to survive, but that's not an excuse. Remember the incident of border borders that happened right in the middle of town and at daytime where they were attacking people. Now, according to Luke Owesigire, as he was explaining exactly what happened during the shooting that happened in town, in Kampala town, in one of the buildings, he explained that there was a scuffle between the security personnel and the border who had parked near the bank. Now, the reason he said that border borders are being stopped from parking near banks is because when I go into the bank and I withdraw money, they trail me to wherever I'm going, attack me, take the money bag, and then run away with it. We've seen these incidents that's happened. We've played videos time immemorial, and we've played it time and time again on what is happening, especially on the increasing crime. There was also another incident of crime where people dressed in National Sewerage and National Water and Sewerage Corporation uniforms, that is blue, entered in a house of a Chinese resident and stole money worth a lot, and they tied up this man and his cook and they ran away with that money. However, they were also caught in the eastern district of Uganda and they were brought to justice. Some of them are still on the run, and according to police, they were planning to perpetrate another crime in DRC. They had uniforms ready and they had everything ready, and if it wasn't for the CCTV camera in his home, then they wouldn't be caught. Now, at this time, when crime is on the rise, a number of people have attributed it to the poverty line dropping and the fact that the curfew is still in place. Why do they attribute it to the curfew? Here are two things and two reasons why people think that curfew has led to the increased crime in the country. One, they say that if you look at the time of curfew, and that is 9 p.m., you see that a number of people know that by 9 I have to be home. So most people are actually off the streets at that time. Although things are now a bit different, that people are in the streets until 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, depending on the timing that you're looking at. People are still on the streets, but the majority of them are at home. Which means these thugs take advantage of the fact that people are not on the streets to rob as early as 7 and 8 and 6. The other reasoning is that with the curfew that has been put in place, people that would be preoccupied at night are now being unable to be preoccupied because they don't have jobs anymore. Government has kept this country on a lockdown for over 1 year. So that's 1 year and more, and that means economies such as bars, economies such as nightclubs, economies such as Bivulu, that is how do they call it, concerts that these musicians put up have been put on a standstill. And the people who used to sell on the roadside at night cannot do so anymore. The people who used to sell Rolex on the roadside at night are unable to do so anymore. The people who used to sell chicken and chips on the roadside are not able to do that anymore. And there are a lot of other businesses that, of course, we can't talk about all of them right now. The list is endless that were shut down during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the curfew is still in place till now. Now, Muslim leaders spoke to Rebecca Kadaga and spoke to the government and called upon them to release the curfew until 11, to push it until 11 so that they can be able to pray Tarawih. Now, before President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni addressed the nation, there were two responses from police that came out. The first one was they were asking their police commanders in these different regions or in these different areas in Kampala to protect Muslims and ensure that there's a patrol to see that there are no criminals lurking around to attack them as they go for their nightly prayers called Tarawih that happens during Ramadan. And they said that Muslims, if found walking at night, will not be arrested but will be protected and will be taken to their home during the nightly session. However, a second statement from police came up saying the first one was released in error and they're not going to extend the curfew and Muslims should pray at home. And that is after President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni also released a small statement saying that Muslims should pray at home and they shouldn't be going to the mosques. He said he's also religious, but there's also a saying that God is everywhere. And people need to understand that, and that God is not only in the mosques, but also at home. And he urges the Muslims to pray at home and not in the mosque, because for him, at this time of COVID-19, he knows that even your God, our God, will understand that someone needed pray in the mosque because there's a curfew, and of course there's a COVID-19 pandemic. And if everybody says they're going to pray in the mosque at Tarawih, that means there will be congestion. Now let's listen to what President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was saying, come back, discuss it a little bit more, and then go to the next story.
However, it is important to note that in other parts of the world, the mutations of B1525, the United Kingdom variant, have shown increased transmissibility. It can infect more. Secondly, increased severity. It makes you more sick, even among the young people. That it can even attack the young people now. Because you remember the original one was not so strong among the young people. And they are saying there is also the potential escape, the potential immune escape, that it is the other American aircraft, the stealth bomber, the one which cannot be seen by the radar, that the immune system will not be able to see it. In other words, the vaccines may not work on this one. Moreover, infection with some of these variants presents unusually with no warning signs of cough or loss of smell and a rapid progression to respiratory failure. What is known from science is that the quick deployment of vaccines and other prevention measures reduces the circulation of the virus in the population and the chances of new variants emerging. Since March 2020, at the onset of COVID-19 pandemic in our country, government has implemented several containment and mitigation measures geared towards limiting rapid spread of COVID-19 among the population, strengthening and sustaining the health system capacity to respond to the pandemic and manage all the other illnesses and conditions. These containment measures ranged from restriction of movement of the population in the geographical locations, institution of curfew, closure of international borders to all passengers except cargo, quarantine of returning travelers, suspension of mass meetings, closure of schools and places of worship, among others. Through these means, government has been able to control the pandemic and avert death and potential unmanageable mass hospitalization and death, which we have seen in other countries. So the figures I gave you, the 41,000 infected, 40,000 recoveries, 337 deaths, these were low because of these measures which we took. Because I think the global figure of infection is now 120-something million. And the deaths are in millions. Millions. In the United States alone, I think I saw the figure of deaths at 560,000 when I last checked. So therefore, when we advise you to please maintain the measures to avoid, it is because that's really the only effective way up to now. Now, on the issue of the vaccination, despite the observed reduction in the daily caseload and death, it is important to get vaccinated, and infections may soar up again. Since the deployment of the AstraZeneca vaccine that began on the 10th of March 2021, we have so far vaccinated only 200,000 people. We need to accelerate this effort if we are to avoid a catastrophe. Please get out and get vaccinated and protect yourself and your family if you are in the categories that have been lined up for early vaccination. Vaccines are the most effective intervention we have against COVID-19. Vaccines reduce chances of severe disease and death. The government and partners are working hard to bring vaccines to most adult Ugandans to protect them and support us to reopen the economy and get back to our get back all our children to school. But do not forget about the other SOPs yet. Vaccines together with these SOPs will get us back to our normal lives. On the night curfew, we have, through maintenance of curfew for the last 1 year and various other measures, brought to manageable levels the number of COVID-19 cases in Uganda. Curfew was introduced for the following purposes: lessen the congregation of people and ensure that activities in high-risk areas, bars, discos, and concerts are stopped. Because remember, a bar is not the place where to observe SOPs. Because in a bar, you are talking of drunkards, people who are drunk. And people who are drunk don't know how to take precautions. So those who are pushing for bars without us getting to a level of vaccination which is safe are really your enemies. They are disappointed that you have not died, and they want many of us to die. And we don't support that. We know that that is wrong. We are aware that there have been violations by some individuals that have operated bars in disregard of COVID-19 rules. The operators of these premises should know that they are putting themselves and their customers at great risk of contracting coronavirus 19.
Had his speech on the COVID-19 situation in the country. We know that over 40,000 people have been infected with COVID-19, while 330 people died from COVID-19. However, the recovery rate is also not too bad in the country, and we are hoping that it continues. However, according to the president, just like you have watched, he says that the number of people who have received that vaccine are very, very, very few, and he says that it is time for more Ugandans to come out and vaccinate. Of course, people took that to Twitter and Instagram and made a fun of the fact that not a lot of people have gone and gotten that vaccine, and they're saying that it is because bars have not been opened. However, you've heard what President Museveni has said on bars, and Ofono Opondo last week had said that whoever feels like they want to drink, why don't you buy the beers and go and drink them at home? And the response, according to people, was that drinking at home is not the same as drinking in a bar. So that conversation is ongoing, and people are continuing to advocate for the opening of these fun places, and they're saying that government needs to rethink it. However, the important conversation right now on the table is Ramadan and Tarawih. Now, the president has said a number of issues on this particular topic. He says it is okay for Muslims to go for their nightly prayers as long as there is no congestion in the mosques. But he also says that why would you go to the mosque when you can pray at home and, of course, get more rewards, according to Ali, who was here with us the other week, that you get more rewards when you pray at home with your family, leading them in salah instead of going to the mosque where some sheikh will lead you in salah. So President Museveni is advocating for that as well. He says the curfew will not be extended as had been requested by Muslim scholars and Muslim leaders, and the curfew will remain in place. So as we are discussing this information, I need you to know, you who is watching me right now, that we are still going to be under curfew. For how long, I do not know, but the president had said as long as Ugandans are not yet vaccinated, he's not going to open these nightly economies. And he says unless half or all people in Uganda are vaccinated, then something can be done. Now, in 2019, we had a 44 million populational count in Uganda, and I know right now in 2021 it has increased slightly, and President Museveni says unless all of them have been vaccinated, nothing can happen. Now, let's look at some of the direct quotes that President Museveni said. He says, when we advise you to please maintain the measures, it is because it is so far the only effective way. Much as cases seem to have fallen to manageable levels, it is important to maintain some of these measures, and we shall therefore maintain curfew between 9 and 5:30. And that is what Museveni says is stamping the seal on the fact that the curfew will still remain in place regardless of what people say. Now, the other thing that Museveni said is that we have covered more than 12 months and survived. And we have covered elections, exams, and all things that we're supposed to be done, and they have been done successfully. Let's not make any mistake in the name of Ramadan and Tarawih in opening up our country to COVID-19. Yet, we had fought against COVID-19. He also says COVID-19 still has no cure, and some countries are imposing new lockdowns either for the whole country or region, and we are taking a guarded action so that as we reopen, we are not taken by surprise. Now, that's another comment that came in from Ofono Opondo. Now, I need to know what your feelings are about President Museveni saying that the curfew is not going to be extended. Our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube are all there for you to give us your comments and tell us what exactly it is you feel about the fact that President Museveni has said that the curfew will still remain in place. But again, that doesn't mean that Muslims who are found at night going back home after the 8 p.m. prayers will be arrested, and police has assured us that will not happen. So if there are any cases of that is happening right now, please report to STV on the First Show desk, and we'll definitely bring it to the limelight and we'll be talking about it.